Welcome to the Cup of Joe Wrestling Show.
Cup of Joe Wrestling Show?
With Joey Harris. A podcast for the wrestling fan on the go. So take your favorite beverage of choice and join Joey as he takes a look at some of the biggest shows on the WWE Network.
From makeshift studios deep in the heart of stately Maine Manor, this is the Cup of Joe Wrestling Show, and I'm your host, Joey Harris. You can follow the show on Twitter at Cup of Joe Pod, email the show at cupofjoewrestlingshow@gmail.com. And folks, I've hit a busy season in my life. I'm trying to get a lot done in a short amount of time, and we got a long way to go and a short time to get there, as Mr. Reed used to sing, so let's get right down to it. Today, Project 45 continues, and we have landed in 2020. What a year. Everybody knows about 2020, everything that happened that year and all the craziness that we are still going through. Today, we take a look at the 2020 Elimination Chamber from the WWE. WWE Elimination Chamber 2020 took place on pay-per-view and on the WWE Network on March the 8th, 2020, from the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. There were 14,853 in attendance. This was the last big event before the pandemic. In the pre-show, the Viking Raiders defeated Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder. We get our WWE intro, then an Elimination Chamber intro. Michael Cole welcomes us to Elimination Chamber. He and Corey Graves are the SmackDown announcers for the evening. Daniel Bryan versus Drew Gulak. Bryan comes down to a massive ovation from the crowd. They do the yes chant and point with him all the way down to the ring. Gulak comes out looking determined as they flash back to how the match came about this past Friday night on SmackDown. Marcelo Rodriguez and Carlos Cabrera from the Spanish announce team are introduced. Calvin Nee, Karsten Schaefer, and Tim Haber from the German announce team are introduced next. The bell rings and they stare at each other from across the ring as a Daniel Bryan chant goes out. They lock up and Gulak with a fireman's carry takedown. They lock up again. Bryan with a wrist lock. Gulak reverses it into a fireman's carry takedown. Gulak with a wrist lock. Into a side headlock. Bryan pushes it off. Gulak comes back with a shoulder block. Bryan goes over to a corner to regroup. They lock up again. Bryan with a side headlock takeover. Into a headlock. Gulak spinning around trying to get out of the move. Reverses it into a head scissors. Michael Cole just said that Gulak was from Philadelphia and pronounced it funny. It was really weird. Bryan keeps twisting and turning trying to get out of the hold. He gets out and gets a half crab on Gulak. Gulak turns around and kicks Bryan and grabs the leg trying to get a half crab of his own. Bryan kicks Gulak in the face trying to get him down to the mat. They are down on the ground with Bryan still in the hold kicking each other as a Daniel Bryan chant goes out. They roll over to the bottom rope and the official breaks the hold. I have concluded that Cole just says Philadelphia weirdly. Gulak telling Bryan to come on, but Bryan rolls to the outside to regroup. Bryan finally gets back in the ring. They start to lock up. Bryan gets a single leg takedown. He tries to get Gulak into a surfboard, but Gulak just powers out of the move. Gulak grabs a leg to go for a submission move. Gulak gets the surfboard on. Bryan gets out and attacks Gulak with kicks. They briefly lock up, and then Bryan hits a kick to Gulak, who then grabs Bryan's leg. Gulak drives Bryan to the corner and starts hitting Bryan with shots and chops. Bryan reverses and hits Gulak with chops and kicks. Gulak catches the leg and takes Bryan over to the mat. Gulak with a leg lock, and the referee is down, checking on Bryan. Bryan powers up and over and gets Gulak in a side headlock. Gulak with a head scissors. Bryan raises his legs up, so Gulak lifts his knees up and drops Bryan on his head. Bryan rolls away and is holding his head. Gulak gets Bryan in a position that looks like he is going for a rude awakening, but then lifts Bryan up by his neck. He then spins Bryan around and finally comes down with the neck breaker. He gets a 2 count. Gulak drives Bryan to a corner and hits him with a knee to the midsection. Into a wrist lock and then chops Bryan a couple of times and goes for a sleeper. Bryan blocks it several times. Gulak with some body shots. Another block by Bryan. Gulak with more body shots. Bryan then gets a suplex and they both spill to the outside. A double count going. They both get back in on the count of 8. Bryan with the front face lock by the corner. Gulak with a knee to the stomach to get out of the hold. Bryan gets a couple of kicks to Gulak's face. Bryan goes to the second rope and comes off, but Gulak catches him and gets a full Nelson reversal and back Saito style suplexes Bryan hard. He gets a close 2 count. Bryan grabs his neck. Gulak gets a full Nelson on. Bryan powers his way back to his feet. He flips down and rolls through to get a pinning predicament on Gulak for a 2 count. Bryan gets a full Nelson. Gulak slips out and flips around. Bryan gets a dragon suplex for a 2 count, and the crowd comes to life on that move. Gulak with a German suplex for a 2 count. Gulak keeps the waistlock on. Bryan gets a waistlock on. Gulak with a back elbow and a reversal. Gulak with another German suplex, and Bryan lands hard on his neck. Gulak gets a 2 count. Bryan rolls out of the ring and collapses to the floor. Bryan being counted out. Bryan gets back into the ring just before the 10 count, and Gulak immediately covers him. He gets a 2 count. Gulak with a corner chop and a whip. Bryan runs up the opposite corner and flips over the charging Gulak. Bryan running the ropes and hits a running elbow, and both men are down. A yes chant goes out. Bryan hits a couple of forearms and runs Gulak into a corner turnbuckle head first. Bryan with a series of yes kicks to Gulak in the corner. Bryan puts Gulak on the turnbuckle, and Gulak slips underneath and pushes Bryan, causing him to crotch himself on the top turnbuckle. Gulak with a top rope facebuster, and Gulak keeps the hold on after landing and is trying to go for the Gulak, the dragon sleeper. Gulak with elbows to the injured neck of Bryan. Gulak goes back to the Gulak, and Bryan rolls through and counters into the yes lock. Gulak passes out from the pain, and the referee has them ring the bell, and Bryan wins. They show a replay of some of the big moves of the match. Bryan gets up on the turnbuckle, and the crowd starts doing the yes chant. Kayla Braxton interviews Robert Roode and Dolph Ziggler about the Elimination Chamber and them coming in last. Roode said it's not if they win, but when they win. The other teams are going to wear each other out. Ziggler and he are going to enter the match last, pick up the pieces, and walk out the new SmackDown Tag Team Champions. And when that happens, it's going to be absolutely glorious. Kayla says good luck. Ziggler says they don't need luck. They know the whole world is going to be watching this match purely because of this talent. He says someone special will be watching, of course. Shout out to his babe Mandy Rose. But back to tonight, they will do what they do best. Steal the whole show. United States Championship match. Andrade with Zelina Vega versus Humberto Carrillo. Tom Phillips, Jerry Lawler, and Byron Saxton take over for the Raw match. They show Andrade taking Humberto out, and then Humberto attacking Andrade to set up the match. The bell rings and Andrade hits an elbow and gets a 2 count. Andrade with a series of kicks. Andrade with a backdrop. He stomps Humberto by the ropes. Andrade with more kicks and forearms. Andrade with a corner whip, but Humberto moves on the charge in. Back and forth near the corner. Andrade with a forearm and goes to the ropes. When he comes back, Humberto hits a drop kick on Andrade. Humberto clotheslines Andrade to the outside. He bounces off of the barricade. Humberto follows Andrade out and chops him at ringside. He then throws Andrade back in the ring. He gets a 1 count. Andrade with a knee to the midsection. Andrade with a corner whip, and Humberto comes back with a reverse crossbody. He gets a 1 count. Humberto with a waist lock. Andrade with some back elbows to try to get out of the move. Humberto switches to the side headlock, and Andrade with more back elbows to try to get out of the move. He does, and Andrade pushes off. Humberto with a springboard arm drag to send Andrade out to the floor. Humberto reaches through the ropes and grabs Andrade. Andrade gets on the apron and guillotines Humberto on the top rope. Back in, Andrade hits a running drop kick. Andrade grabs Humberto by the arm and extends it over Andrade's shoulder and hits Humberto with a back elbow. He then alternates driving the arm down on the shoulder with the back elbows. He then drives Humberto down to the mat and applies an armbar. Humberto gets back to his feet and hits Andrade with some forearms trying to get out of the move. Andrade with an Irish whip. He drops his head too early and Humberto kicks him in the face. Humberto with an arm drag and Andrade comes back with a back elbow. Andrade then throws Humberto out of the ring. He then follows Humberto out and starts to pull up the protective mats along the floor. Humberto comes to attack him, and Andrade with a kick to the face. Back and forth at ringside. Andrade picks Humberto up and runs him into the corner post. Andrade rolls to the inside to break the count. He comes back out and Irish whips Humberto into the barrier by the timekeeper's table. Humberto collapses and Andrade rolls inside the ring. Andrade with a running kick. Humberto gets back in the ring and Andrade gets him in an armbar. He gets Humberto down and pulls back on the arm as Vega yells at Humberto that he better give up. Vega then tells Andrade to rip the arm off. Humberto makes it back to his feet and hits Andrade with kicks and forearms. Andrade responds with knees to the midsection. Andrade with a series of forearm shots to Humberto. Andrade then charges Humberto, who dumps him over the top rope to the outside. Vega tries to get Andrade to get back up as the referee is counting him out. Andrade gets back in on the count of 6. Humberto with a jawbreaker on Andrade. Andrade misses a clothesline attempt. Humberto with a Pele kick. Then Humberto with a tilt-a-whirl backbreaker. Humberto with an enziguri to Andrade off the ropes. Humberto goes for a spinning move, but Andrade pushes him neck first into a corner turnbuckle. Humberto dodges a running back elbow and hits a charging Andrade with a kick to the face. He backdrops Andrade to the apron. Andrade with a forearm to Humberto. Andrade goes to the top rope, and Humberto hits him with an enziguri to the side of the head. Humberto goes up and tries for a superplex, but Andrade grabs the rope to block it. They are chopping into each other on the ropes. Humberto hits a Hurricane Rana off the top rope. He gets a close 2 count. A "This is awesome" chant goes out. He goes up for a moonsault, but Andrade moves, so Humberto lands on his feet and Andrade hip tosses him into the corner turnbuckle. Andrade then hits double knees in the corner to Humberto. He gets a close 2 count. Vega rips up a portion of the ringside mat. Andrade throws Humberto out onto the floor. Andrade goes for a double arm DDT, but Humberto reverses it into a back body drop. The referee is counting Andrade out as Humberto gets back into the ring and hits a running dive over the referee onto Andrade on the outside. Humberto throws Andrade back in. Humberto with a crossbody from the top rope onto Andrade, who rolls through and gets a 2 count on Humberto. Humberto with a roll-up for a 2 count of his own. Humberto with a sunset flip for a 2 count. Andrade reverses for a 2 count. They both do counters for 2 counts. Andrade gets a roll-up of the pin with a handful of tights. Humberto complains to the referee about the pin. Charlie Caruso talks to AJ Styles about his upcoming no disqualification match against Aleister Black. AJ asks Charlie if she feels as sorry for Aleister Black as he does. He says, let's think about this guy. He has no friends. He locks himself in a dark room. He listens to really sad music, probably with some scented candles all around him, probably watching old reruns, which he enjoys too. He thinks the real question she wants to ask is, are Gallows and Anderson going to join him at ringside? And the answer is, yes, they are. He says they wanted to buy tickets, but it was all sold out. So what are you going to do? He wishes that everyone had friends like him and that they're just giving him their support. Charlie asks him if Gallows and Anderson are going to be in his corner. Is this even a fair match? He says, Charlie, it's me, AJ, the phenomenal one. No, it's not going to be a fair match when anyone is in the ring with him. Listen, if anyone's going to get disqualified from this match, it's going to be him. Like, did he say that right? He then awkwardly leaves. A WrestleMania ad. WrestleMania would look very different by the time they get there. Elimination Chamber match for the SmackDown Tag Team Championship. The Miz and John Morrison versus the New Day, Big E and Kofi Kingston versus the Usos, Jay and Jimmy versus Heavy Machinery, Otis and Tucker versus Lucha House Party, Lince Dorado and Grand Metalik versus Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode. Miz and Morrison out first. They get locked in their pod. Roode and Ziggler come out next. They will come out last after winning a gauntlet match on SmackDown. Lucha House Party out next. Then Heavy Machinery comes out. Otis comes over and just stares at Ziggler because of the Mandy Rose situation. New Day out next, and they are extremely over with the crowd. They are going to start the match with the Usos. Usos come out looking determined. The bell rings and they are just staring at each other. Usos talking smack and New Day attack them. Big E running his shoulder into Jay in the corner, and Kingston Irish whips Jimmy. Jimmy comes back with a shoulder block. Back and forth with leapfrogs and drop downs, and Kingston hits a back elbow on Jimmy. He gets a 2 count as Jay is now punching Big E in the corner. Jimmy reverses a corner whip and monkey flips Kingston out of the corner. Kingston lands on his feet. Kingston with a drop kick to Jimmy. Jay comes over and slaps Kingston down. Big E with a side headlock to Jay. Jay pushes off. Big E comes back with a shoulder block. Big E with a belly-to-belly suplex to Jay. Jimmy hits a crossbody on Big E for a 2 count. Kingston makes a misstep on the top rope, but twists into a shoulder tackle to get a 2 count on Jimmy. Jay hits a super kick to Kingston and then punches him with an uppercut. Usos put Kingston on the top rope and slap him. Usos go for a double superplex to Kingston, but Big E breaks it up. He throws Jimmy to the outside and goes for a powerbomb on Jay, but Jimmy pulls Jay to safety, and the two teams are standing off against each other. The countdown starts. Lucha House Party come out next. New Day rush them, and Lucha House Party hit Stereo Enziguri to them. Lucha House Party jump over the Usos and hit Hurricane Ranas to New Day before hitting the Usos with super kicks. Lucha House Party then send Big E and Kingston to the outside. Jay Uso corner whipped by Lucha House Party. Grand Metalik with an Enziguri to Jay, and Lince Dorado hits a springboard stunner to Jay. That was a cool move. Grand Metalik then uses Lince Dorado as a platform to splash Jay. Jimmy breaks up the pin attempt. Jimmy with a corner whip to Grand Metalik, who sprints up to the ropes and drop kicks Jimmy. Lince Dorado hits a moonsault on Jimmy from the bottom rope. Grand Metalik moonsaults Jimmy from the second rope. Lince Dorado then moonsaults Jimmy from the top rope. Lucha House Party double pin Jimmy, but Jay breaks up the count. Big E comes in and Lucha House Party double team him with chops. Double Irish whip by Lucha House Party, but Big E holds on to the ropes. Lince Dorado Irish whips Grand Metalik into Big E, who hip tosses Grand Metalik to the outside platform. Lince Dorado then launched to the outside as well. Big E then launches Kingston into Lucha House Party. Kingston throws Lucha House Party into the ring. Kingston slams both members of Lucha House Party down next to each other. Kingston launches himself for a leg drop on Lucha House Party, but they both move. Big E goes to drive his shoulder into Lince Dorado in the corner, but Lince Dorado moves and Big E goes shoulder first into the ring post. Jimmy Uso launches Lince Dorado into the structure, and Lince Dorado just sticks there like Spider-Man. His leg had gone through. He then starts scaling the chamber. He gets on top of the pod that Lucha House Party were in, and Jay tries to come up after him, and Jimmy starts coming up too, and Lince Dorado is trying to keep them both away with kicks. He kicks them off, but Kingston gets to the top of the pod. Grand Metalik then climbs the pod, and Lucha House Party has Kingston in a sandwich with them as the bread. They beat Kingston off, and he falls and hits the top of the pod with his jaw in what had to be a painful move. Lucha House Party then stomped on Kingston's hand to knock him off the pod. Lince Dorado then launches himself onto the Usos with a crossbody, and Grand Metalik launches himself onto the New Day to take them out. All participants down as the clock starts again. Miz and Morrison are released. They throw everybody in the ring out onto the platform. Miz runs Big E into the structure while Morrison is kicking and punching Kingston. Miz then runs the Usos into the structure. Miz and Morrison then pick Lince Dorado up and slam him down. They then hit Lince Dorado with a running knee and a running boot to the face. They get a 2 count, but Grand Metalik breaks up the pin attempt. They put Grand Metalik in the Tree of Woe, and Miz is kicking Grand Metalik. Miz kicks Grand Metalik with yes kicks, and Morrison hits him with a spinning enziguri. They hit a double DDT to Jimmy Uso, but Jay breaks up the pin attempt. They corner whip Jay. Miz corner whips Morrison into Jay, who backdrops Morrison, but Morrison lands on his feet. Jay then gets his feet up on a Miz charge. Jay slaps Morrison and hits Miz with a European uppercut. He tries again, and Miz catches him with a backwards face lock, and Morrison stomps on Jay from the top rope. He gets a 2 count. Morrison throws Lince Dorado back into the ring, back and forth between the two. Morrison with a spinning power slam on Lince Dorado, but Grand Metalik breaks up the pin attempt. Morrison goes to corner whip Grand Metalik into Miz for Miz to backdrop, but Grand Metalik lands on his feet on the ropes and climbs up to the top of a pod. He then Hurricane Ranas Morrison from the top of the pod. That was an awesome move. Grand Metalik goes to cover Morrison, but Miz breaks up the pin attempt. A "This is awesome" chant goes out. Kingston hits Miz with an elbow smash from the top rope. Kingston with a back elbow to Miz, then a chop and a drop kick to Kingston. Kingston with a clothesline. Boom drop to Miz. Kingston goes for trouble in paradise. Miz ducks. Morrison with an enziguri. Miz with a pin attempt that Big E breaks up. Morrison punching and kicking Big E. Big E catches Morrison and hits an overhead belly-to-belly suplex. Miz kicking Big E. Big E grabs Miz for Kingston to hit a top rope knee drop. They cover, but Morrison breaks up the pin attempt. Countdown starts for Heavy Machinery to come in. An Otis chant starts. Otis and Tucker come in and clean house. They get the Usos up against the chamber structure and just squash them over and over. Usos collapse on the platform. Lince Dorado climbs up to the top of a pod, and Tucker with an Irish whip and a sidewalk slam to Grand Metalik and gets a 2 count. Big E comes in and hits a clothesline on Otis. Tucker then clotheslines Big E. Heavy Machinery with a double squash to Big E in the middle of the ring. Big E staggering but still standing. He finally falls down. Otis does the caterpillar on Big E. Kingston breaks up the pin attempt. The Usos, Heavy Machinery, The New Day, and Miz and Morrison all fighting in the ring while Lince Dorado is shown climbing to the top of the structure. He dives onto everyone else in a really cool move. A holy shit chant goes out. Heavy Machinery does the trash compactor on Grand Metalik to eliminate the Lucha House Party. Everybody else is down as the countdown starts and Heavy Machinery is looking at Rude and Ziggler. They are begging the other teams to get up and attack Heavy Machinery. Ziggler and Rude try to keep the pod closed, while Heavy Machinery is trying to open them. Miz and Morrison come and attack Heavy Machinery. Ziggler and Rude finally come out and go after Heavy Machinery. Ziggler and Miz run Otis into the chain link structure. Ziggler screaming, "You wanted it so bad, Otis," as an Otis chant goes out. Morrison corner whips Rude into Tucker, who hits Rude with a back elbow. Morrison rushes Tucker, who backdrops Morrison onto the outside platform. Ziggler keeps trying to scale the structure to get away from Otis, who keeps grabbing Ziggler. Ziggler gets on top of a pod and taunts Otis, not seeing Tucker climb up the other side. Tucker attacks Ziggler and runs him into the structure. He then throws Ziggler to Otis. Otis guillotines Ziggler on the top rope. Tucker dives onto the New Day and the Usos on the outside platform. Rude jumps Otis from behind after he goes after Ziggler again. Ziggler and Rude double teaming Otis and stomping him down. They point that they are going to run Otis into the structure. He blocks it and delivers back elbow to both Rude and Ziggler. Otis clotheslines Rude and then Ziggler. He hits Ziggler with the right hand and then grabs him by the hair. He picks Ziggler up and puts him on his shoulder, but Rude comes and pulls Ziggler off. Rude then kicks Otis in the stomach. He goes for the glorious DDT, but Otis counters it into a backdrop. Otis rushes Ziggler, who moves out of the way, and Otis plows through the pod to the outside. Another holy shit chant goes out. Tucker and some referees come over to check on Otis, who is still down. A "This is awesome" chant goes out. Tucker, angry at what happened to his partner, attacks Ziggler and Rude. Ziggler goes for the Famouser, but Tucker pushes off. He blocks a right hand by Rude and hits a right hand of his own. Ziggler hits a super kick on Tucker. Rude then hits the glorious DDT to pin Tucker and Heavy Machinery has been eliminated. Ziggler and Rude taunting Otis as he is carried out. An asshole chant goes out. Kingston sneaks up on Ziggler and hits Trouble in Paradise on him. Big E picks Rude up and hits the big ending. The Usos then hit the splash on Ziggler and Rude from the top of the pods to eliminate them. The crowd chants the "Na Na Na" goodbye song to Rude and Ziggler. The three remaining teams all in the ring and staring at each other. Miz and Morrison back off as the New Day and the Usos stare at each other, and then all four turn to Miz and Morrison. Both teams attack Miz and Morrison. They stomp them down. They are then both thrown out onto the platform. New Day and the Usos then attack each other, and the Usos get Kingston in a Samoan drop. They get a 2 count. Big E hits a Uriagi on Jay, but gets hit with a Samoan drop from Jimmy. Jimmy gets a 2 count. Kingston and Jimmy battle on the ropes. Kingston with an enziguri and a headbutt. Jimmy goes for a superplex. Kingston blocks it at first and slams Jimmy down. Kingston climbs on top of a pod. Kingston jumps off, but Jimmy moves out of the way. Miz and Morrison come over and cover Kingston for the pin, and New Day is eliminated. All 4 remaining competitors fighting in the center of the ring. Miz and Morrison both thrown out onto the platform and both land on their feet. They both try for springboards and both get super kicked by the Usos. Morrison covered for a 2 count. Usos go up top for the double splash. They hit the splash, but Miz gets his knees up and a double count is going. but both kick out at 2. Miz gets a single leg takedown on Jay and goes for the figure 4. Jay kicks Miz away and the Usos go for the double super kick, but Miz ducks and pushes Jimmy into Jay. Miz hits the SCF on Jimmy and gets a close 2 count. Miz gets the figure 4 on. Miz grabs the ropes, which is legal, and Morrison goes up top and hits Starship Pain. He gets a 2 count. Jay rolls Morrison up to break the count and gets a 2 count of his own. Jay then super kicks both Miz and Morrison. He gets a 2 count on Morrison. Miz by the ropes. Jay Irish whips Morrison into Miz, but Morrison leapfrogs as Miz goes through Jay's leg and hooks his leg as Morrison comes over with a roll-up, and Miz uses the ropes for leverage, which is legal, and Miz and Morrison get the pin to retain. Michael Cole and Corey Graves show a replay of some of the biggest moments of the match. The Usos are looking dejected as they leave the chamber, and Miz and Morrison taunt them. A WWE Network ad. Shayna Bayzsler looking determined as she gets ready backstage. Asuka looking to get hyped up in the back. Charlie Caruso talks to Natalya. Charlie first asks her how her friend Beth Phoenix is doing since being RKO'd by Randy Orton on Raw this past Monday. Natalya says Beth is one of the strongest women that Natalya has ever known, and she is going to pull through this. But Natalya can't say the same thing for Randy Orton. When Edge gets his hands on him this Monday on Raw, she is so disgusted by the fact that Randy RKO'd Beth. But not only that, Randy also questioned Beth's role as a mother. There's nothing that Edge and Beth take more pride in than being amazing parents. Beth and Edge are family to her, and family is everything to her. That's why tonight, when she enters the Elimination Chamber, she's going to unleash her legacy, because she was born to do this. She then leaves. No disqualification match. AJ Styles with Gallows and Anderson versus Aleister Black. The bell rings and they stare at each other from across the ring. They circle each other. Black wants to lock up. Styles gets to the ropes. They lock up again. Styles with a side headlock. Black goes to push off, but Styles keeps the hold on, driving Black to his knees. Black gets back to his feet and then pushes Styles off. Styles gets to the ropes and holds on. They circle each other again. Styles grabs a leg to try to get Black down. Black grabs the ropes and kicks Styles off with his other leg. They circle each other yet again, both men being wary here. Styles grabs the leg again. Black gets out and tries a roughhouse kick, but Styles ducks. Styles then grabs a leg to force Black down. Black with a series of elbows to Styles' head to get out of the hold. They circle each other again. Styles goes back to try to grab the leg again. Black spins around Styles and rolls him up. Styles spins through to avoid the cover. Black with a running kick to knock Styles down. Black gets Styles in the corner and hits a series of head and body shots. He attacks the leg with a series of brutal kicks. He then stomps the leg several times while Styles is on the ground. Black picks Styles up and hits a big European uppercut. Then a single leg pickup and a brutal kick to Styles' inside thigh. Gallows gets up on the apron. Black comes over and Gallows drops off the apron and backs away. When he comes back, Styles starts for a single leg takeover, but low blows Black halfway through the move since it's completely legal in this match. Black comes back with a roundhouse kick to knock Styles down. Anderson gets up on the apron, but gets off when Black comes over. Black turns around and Styles with a chop block to Black. Black in the corner, and Styles runs his shoulder into Black's injured leg. Styles then drapes the injured leg on the ropes and starts kicking it. Styles with a knee to the leg, knocking Black off. Black rolling away as Styles tries to kick the leg again. Black grabs Styles, but Styles stomps down on the leg to get the hold released. Styles grabs the leg and pulls back on it. Black gets his other leg up and drives it into Styles to try to get out of the hold. He then kicks Styles in the face to try to release the hold. Styles rolls to the outside. He reaches under the ring and brings out a kendo stick. He comes in and hits Black's injured leg with it. He does it a second time. Black dodges a third shot and kicks Styles in the side of the head. Black grabs the kendo stick. Styles hits him with a drop kick and he drops the kendo stick. Black staggers back and falls outside of the ring. Styles comes over and launches himself over the top rope onto Black, who hits a knee strike to Styles in midair. Black goes under the ring and comes out with a table. He sets the table up at ringside. He goes to grab Styles, who has a chair, and hits Black with it. He hits Black in his injured leg and on the back with it. Styles tosses Black back in the ring. Styles then wedges the chair in one of the corners on the ropes. Styles grabs Black by his injured leg and pulls him back to the center of the ring. Black with a punch to Styles to get him to release the leg. They go back and forth in the middle of the ring. Styles goes to run Black into the set-up chair. Black pushes off and hits Styles with a back elbow. Then another elbow. Styles hits a Pele kick to knock Black down. Styles drops a knee on the left leg of Black. He then does a running knee to Black. Then a series of punches and kicks to Black. Styles stops and yells that he's the wrestler of the decade, and Black drives a shoulder into Styles' midsection. Styles tries to come back with a shot that Black blocks and hits Styles with a series of knees and a back elbow. Then a kick to Styles' knee to knock him down. Then a knee strike to Styles' face to knock him to the mat. Styles gets to a corner. Black comes limping over and Styles gets the calf crusher on Black. Black screaming but trying to fight, giving up. Black grabs the kendo stick and presses it into Styles' face. He gets out of the move and attacks Styles' leg with the kendo stick. Black swinging the kendo stick like a baseball bat, hitting Styles in the knee and the back. He keeps swinging the stick and hitting Styles in the chest. The stick is splintering as Styles falls to the floor. He goes to hit Styles again, but Styles kicks the knee of Black to stop him. Styles with a Pele kick to knock Black down. Both men down on the mat. Styles gets to his feet, and Anderson points to the table. Styles picks Black up and sets him up for a powerbomb, but Black rolls through and throws Styles out over the top rope. Styles holds on to the ropes and gets up on the apron. Black comes over and hits Styles with some forearms. Styles kicks Black through the ropes and drives Black to one knee. Styles hits Black with a flying forearm from over the top rope. He gets a 2 count. Styles hits a brainbuster on Black. He gets another 2 count. Black looking dazed on the mat. Referee checking on Black. Styles wedges the chair back through the ropes. Styles comes over to Black. He lifts Black up and runs his knee into Black's midsection. Styles goes up top, but takes too long, and Black runs and hits Styles with a running knee on the top rope. Styles falls to the apron. Black struggles to get back to his feet. Black comes over and hits Styles with some forearm strikes. Black ducks a shot from Styles and hits him with some more strikes. He kicks Styles in the leg and then sweeps the leg to knock Styles down. Then a running knee to Styles' face. Black hits a moonsault off the middle rope onto Styles. He gets a 2 count. Black fighting through the pain. He goes to a corner. He stomps his leg to try to fight through the pain. Black with a snap German suplex for a 2 count. Black with a kick to Styles' head to knock him down again. Then a knee to Styles to knock him back down when he tries to get up. Black is still hurting though. Black goes for another knee to Styles, who catches Black and hits a shoulder breaker. Both men down in the ring. Styles goes for the Styles Clash, but Black counters it into a backdrop. Styles holds on to get Black down. Black rolls through. He kicks Styles in the face. Black goes for another moonsault from the second rope, but Styles catches him and goes for a pile driver, but Black rolls him up for a 2 count. Black with a knee to Styles. Black with a running kick to Styles to drive him into the setup chair. Styles down on the apron. He then falls to the floor. A "We Want Tables" chant goes out from the crowd. Black comes out and punches Styles by the German announce table. Styles grabs Black's knee and drives it into the announce table. Styles runs and drives Black up and over the announce table. Styles clears the desk, and the German announcers have jumped over the barricade and are announcing the match in the crowd. Styles gets up on the desk and grabs Black. He goes to suplex Black off, but Black kicks and pushes Styles off, and Styles guillotines himself on the edge of the announce table. Black then hits a meteor to Styles, driving him into and through the setup table at ringside. Black holding his left leg. Black throws Styles back into the ring. Black goes for the Black Mass, but Gallows comes in. Black ducks a shot from Gallows and hits him with a roundhouse kick. Anderson comes in, and Black hits him with a running knee. Black then swarmed by all 3 members of the OC. Gallows and Anderson hit the Magic Killer on Black. They pick Black up and bring him over to Styles, who is going to the apron to set up for the phenomenal forearm. The lights go out, and the Undertaker's bong hits to a roar from the crowd. When the lights come back on, the Undertaker is in the ring holding Gallows and Anderson by the throat. Styles springboards off to hit Undertaker. Undertaker lets Gallows and Anderson go and catches Styles by the throat and chokeslams him. He looks at Styles and the lights go out again. When they come back on, Black and Styles are in the ring. Black struggling to get back to his feet. He gets up and goes towards Styles, who's also up, and when he turns around, Black hits him with the black mass and gets the pin. Black goes to the top of the ramp and looks around, while Styles struggles to leave the ring. Flashback to what led to the Raw Tag Team Championship match. The Street Profits are shown in the back. Montez Ford says that Elimination Chamber has been taken into uncharted territory. The Undertaker is back, claiming and taking souls. Angelo Dawkins says yeah, and on Raw they got that tag title drip. Ford says everybody is focused on March Madness, but what they need to focus on is that the Street Profits are not just one and done. Dawkins says trust the process. Ford says because it's simple, the Street Profits are up and we want the smoke. Raw Tag Team Championship match. The Street Profits, Angelo Dawkins and Montez Ford versus Seth Rollins and Murphy with the Authors of Pain, a common razor. The bell rings and Rollins and Dawkins start. Rollins tries to drag Dawkins to the corner, but Dawkins breaks the hold. A "We want the smoke" chant goes out. Rollins with a waistlock. Dawkins breaks it. Rollins frustrated. Murphy tagged in. Dawkins with a waistlock. Murphy reverses it. Dawkins with a wristlock. Murphy breaks that and gets a side headlock on. Dawkins pushes off. Double shoulder block. Murphy slaps Dawkins. Murphy runs the ropes. Dawkins with a drop down and leapfrogs to avoid getting hit. He hits a shoulder block to Murphy to knock him down. Dawkins with the wrist lock. Ford tagged in. He drops an elbow on Murphy from the second rope. Ford with an armbar. Dawkins tagged back in. He drops a double axe handle on Murphy from the second rope. He puts Murphy in a wrist lock. Street Profits start another "We want the smoke" chant. Dawkins drives Murphy to the ground every time the crowd says smoke. Ford tagged back in. Street Profits tagging in and out to perfection. Ford drops down on Murphy's arm from the top rope. Ford with a wrist lock. Murphy comes back with a forearm shot. He throws Ford into the turnbuckle and Rollins tagged in. Rollins stomping Ford down in the corner. He then drives him headfirst into another turnbuckle. He chops Ford in the corner. He then chokes Ford on the rope while having his knee in Ford's back for a 4 count. Rollins with a corner whip, but Ford comes back up to avoid the charge. Rollins runs the ropes and Ford with the drop downs and leapfrogs to avoid him. Ford with a couple of leapfrogs and an armbar on Rollins into a wrist lock, and Rollins punches Ford to break the hold. Murphy tagged in. Ford arm drags Murphy as soon as he gets in the ring, into an armbar and Murphy trying to get out of the hold. Murphy with an arm drag to get out of the hold. Ford with another arm drag back into an armbar. Ford with a wrist lock. Dawkins tagged in. Ford with an Irish whip, and Dawkins hits Murphy with a drop kick. Double hip tosses by the Street Profits. Rollins comes in and also gets double hip tossed. Rollins and Murphy on the outside. They get up on the apron and the Street Profits hit a double drop kick to knock them back down to the floor. Dawkins goes out and throws Murphy back in the ring. Murphy rolls out to try to get away and Dawkins follows. Murphy gets back in the ring, tagging Rollins as he does, and Dawkins didn't notice it, allowing Rollins to clip Dawkins' knee from behind. Rollins with a neck breaker that takes the headband off of Dawkins and Rollins throws it at him. Rollins drives his knee into Dawkins' leg. He then slaps Dawkins in the head while he is down. Rollins says, "You want the smoke, Dawkins?" He gets Dawkins in a front face lock and drives him into the corner. He wraps Dawkins' leg around the ropes and pulls it in for a 3 count. He tags Murphy in, who starts kicking that same leg of Dawkins. Dawkins falls into the ring. Murphy puts Dawkins' leg on the bottom rope and drops down on it. He then does it again. Rollins says, "Show them how it's done, Murph," as Murphy sets up to do it again. But as Murphy goes to jump up, Dawkins gets his foot up and pushes Murphy over the top rope to the outside. Dawkins makes the tag, and Ford hits a crossbody on Murphy. He then hits Rollins with a forearm to knock him off of the apron. Murphy with a backdrop. Ford tries to land on his feet but slips. He gets to the corner. Murphy tries for a splash, but Ford moves. Ford then jumps over Murphy and comes back with a flying forearm to Murphy. Ford spins out of a move and hits a DDT on Murphy. Ford ducks a clothesline attempt and throws Rollins to the outside. Ford with a standing moonsault to Murphy for a 2 count. Murphy rolls to the outside to regroup, and Ford runs and flips over the top rope to take both out. Ford throws Murphy back in. Rollins distracts the referee as Ford is trying to get back in, allowing the Authors of Pain a chance to attack Ford. They throw him hard into the barricade. Rollins congratulates the Authors of Pain when the Viking Raiders appear, and Rollins sends the Authors of Pain after them. The two teams fight in the aisle. They're brought to the back as Rollins throws Ford back into the ring. Rollins gets back in, and Ford covers him for a 2 count. Rollins with a clothesline. He gets a 2 count. Rollins with a headlock. He gets Ford down on the mat. Ford gets to his feet and pushes to try to get Dawkins to tag. Rollins hits a Falcon Arrow to get a 2 count. Rollins with a wrist lock and tags Murphy in. Murphy with forearms to Ford in the corner. He puts his knee in Ford's back and gets a chin lock. Ford trying to get to his feet. He gets some elbows to Murphy's midsection to try to break the hold. Murphy with a forearm to the back. Ford in the heel's corner. Murphy goes to charge Ford, who gets his boot up to hit Murphy in the face. Ford with the back elbow to Rollins to get out of the corner. Ford tries to dive to reach Dawkins, but gets caught by Murphy. Ford with a sunset flip. Murphy rolls through. Double knees by Murphy to Ford's face. He gets a 2 count. Rollins tagged in. Double corner whip to Ford. Rollins then whips Murphy into Ford, who backdrops Murphy out of the ring. Ford then flips over a charging Rollins. Ford tries to tag Dawkins, but Rollins catches him and tosses him backwards. Ford lands on his feet again and ducks a clothesline attempt to tag Dawkins in. He clotheslines both Rollins and Murphy and hits a back elbow on Murphy. He then drop kicks Murphy. He then drop kicks Rollins. Flapjack on Murphy. Then corner splashes to both Murphy and Rollins, and finally a bulldog to Rollins. Ford tagged back in. He gets Rollins in a headlock and kicks off of Dawkins to drive Rollins headfirst into the mat. Gets a close 2 count. Dawkins tagged back in. He gets Rollins on his shoulders for Ford to drop down on, but Rollins slips out and Ford just jumps over Dawkins. Dawkins tagged in. Rollins with a sling blade to Ford. Murphy tagged in. Murphy goes for the super kick and Dawkins catches his leg. Rollins with a super kick to Dawkins. Murphy with a high knee to Dawkins' face. Double super kick to Dawkins. Ford jumps off the top rope and he gets hit with a double super kick. Murphy gets a 2 count on Dawkins. Murphy asks Rollins what can he do. Murphy goes for the pedigree. Dawkins reaches down and hooks Murphy's leg and slingshots Murphy into the corner. Rollins tags himself in. Dawkins jabs Rollins in the throat as he was jumping in, and Dawkins tags Ford in. Ford with a frog splash from the top rope, and Rollins gets his knees up. Rollins rolls into a cover to Ford and gets a 2 count. Rollins goes for a stomp, but Ford pushes him away. Murphy tagged in. Rollins hits a forearm shiver on Ford. Rollins with a buckle bomb while Murphy kicks Ford in the face. Then Murphy with a driving knee to Ford. Pin attempt broken up by Dawkins. Rollins comes in and throws Dawkins out. Rollins then runs and dives onto Dawkins through the ropes, but Dawkins catches him. Dawkins then hits an overhead belly-to-belly suplex to Rollins on the outside. Ford backdrops Murphy onto the apron. Murphy with the kick to the face of Ford. Murphy goes up top. Ford hits a forearm to Murphy's midsection. Ford going up top. Ford goes for a superplex. Murphy hanging on and hitting shots to Ford's back as the "We Want the Smoke" chant goes out again. Murphy pushes off and Dawkins tagged in. The Street Profits go for a double superplex, but Rollins slides in and slams both Street Profits down while they superplex Murphy. Everybody is down. Kevin Owens is shown coming down the staircase through the crowd, eating some popcorn. He comes over the barricade and sits on the front of the SAT. Rollins turns around and sees him. Rollins comes over and Owens throws popcorn in his face. This distracts Rollins and Dawkins comes over and just plows into him to take him out. Street Profits then take Murphy and throw him into the barricade. They then throw Murphy inside and Dawkins hits him with the corner splash and Ford tagged in. Dawkins slams Murphy down and Ford goes up top and hits the frog splash to win. Rollins in the ring screaming at Murphy on the outside, "What happened to you?" Owens gets in the ring and hits Rollins with the stunner. Owens then grabs his popcorn and leaves, spilling some popcorn on Murphy on his way out. 3-on-1 handicap match for the Intercontinental Championship. Braun Strowman versus Cesaro, Shinsuke Nakamura, and Sami Zayn. Flashback to what led to the match. Strowman out first. They hit his music as Greg Hamilton was trying to announce the stipulations. Caleb Braxton interviews Zayn, Nakamura, and Cesaro. Zayn says his confidence is high. He says he has no reason to be anything but confident. He knows what these bloodthirsty savages want here in Philadelphia. They want another Braun Strowman bash 'em, smash 'em monster truck rally, where he plows through everything on his way to victory. But he's sorry to inform Strowman and everyone else that's not what's going to happen tonight. Do you realize that in months, they're going back and forth with Braun Strowman after months and months of brutality? That Braun Strowman has not gotten to him even once? Not even once. All he wants is for Sami Zayn to get these hands. Zayn mocking Strowman left and right. He hasn't been able to lay one little finger on Sami Zayn. Not one hair on his pretty little head has been harmed. This entire time. That is until tonight. Tonight all that changes. Because tonight he goes toe-to-toe with Braun Strowman. He tells Cesaro and Nakamura not to worry. It is something that he has to do. He is going to look him dead in the eyes, and he is going to face with him, man to man, and he asks Cesaro and Nakamura out of respect, please just hold their posts and stay on the apron, and there's a chance they might end up standing on the apron all night long, because tonight he's going to make sure that justice is finally served. He is going to make sure that the Intercontinental Championship comes back where it belongs. Cesaro out first, then Nakamura, and Zayn last. The Portuguese, Russian, Japanese, Indian, French, and Mandarin announce teams are introduced. Zayn starting off against Strowman. He is bobbing and weaving against Strowman until Strowman takes a step towards him. He then backs into the corner to keep Strowman away and tags Nakamura in. Strowman goes after Zayn, who drops down to the floor to avoid Strowman. Strowman and Nakamura lock up. Strowman pushes Nakamura down. Strowman then again goes towards Zayn, who again drops down to the floor. Nakamura with a waist lock into a side headlock. Strowman stands straight up, lifting Nakamura off of the ground. Strowman pushes off. He misses 2 clothesline attempts, and Nakamura hits a clothesline, but Strowman doesn't move at all. Strowman then hits a drop kick to Nakamura, which flips him over. Strowman lifts Nakamura up and headbutts him. He runs Nakamura headfirst into a turnbuckle. He starts to go for Zayn's corner, then goes back and corner whips Nakamura. Nakamura hits the turnbuckle hard and falls to the mat. He picks Nakamura up and delivers another corner whip. He then hits a big corner splash on Nakamura. He acts like he's going to the opposite corner, but swerves and almost gets Zayn before he falls to the floor to get away. Nakamura with a running drop kick to the knee of Strowman and an enziguri. Cesaro tagged in. Cesaro with a running uppercut to Strowman and then starts choking Strowman on the second rope. He gets a 3 count, and referee Charles Robinson pulls him away, allowing Zayn to come up and slap Strowman. Zayn tags in and starts kicking and stomping Strowman on the mat. He chokes Strowman with his boot for a 3 count, and then stops, and the camera cuts are insane. I don't know how people watch this stuff. It would make me sick with nausea. Nakamura tagged in. Nakamura dropping knees on Strowman's leg in midsection as Strowman tries to make it to his feet. A series of knees and a forearm to Strowman's midsection. Nakamura gets Strowman's head on the second rope and chokes him with his boot as referee Charles Robinson counts. Strowman falls to the ground and Zayn tagged back in. Zayn with some right hands to Strowman, and Strowman is lying face up in the corner, and Zayn steps on him and pushes the full force of his body into Strowman for a 4 count. Cesaro tagged in. He comes over to Strowman, who hits Cesaro with a shot to the stomach. Cesaro with a running kick to the face of Strowman. He gets a 1 count. Zayn tagged in and he hits some jabs to Strowman. He hits Strowman with a right, and Strowman is barely phased and gets up, and Zayn quickly tags Nakamura back in. Strowman picks Nakamura up. Nakamura slips behind Strowman to get on his back and puts a sleeper on. Strowman goes down to 1 knee, then to a seated position. Robinson asking him if he wants to give up. Strowman fighting not to go out. Strowman starting to fade. Strowman gets back to his feet and belly-to-back suplexes Nakamura to break the hold. Nakamura's back is hurt. Cesaro tagged in. Strowman blocks a right hand and hits a right hand of his own. Strowman with 2 shoulder blocks. He throws Cesaro from one corner to another, then back to the first corner. Cesaro bouncing all over the ring. Cesaro thrown into a corner, but gets his boot up on the charge. Nakamura tagged in. Cesaro picked up and dropped by Strowman. Nakamura tries to attack Strowman, who grabs Nakamura and delivers a brutal forearm across the chest to knock Nakamura down. The ring cleared. Zayn tries to attack Strowman from behind. Strowman slowly turns around. Zayn tries to retreat and Strowman is following him. Zayn runs from Strowman and Strowman following him around the ring. Strowman plows through Nakamura and Cesaro. Zayn goes under the ring and Strowman attempts to follow him and gets attacked by Nakamura and Cesaro. Zayn comes back out from under the ring and Strowman is driven into the ring steps shoulder first. He gets thrown back into the ring and Nakamura hits him with a running knee. He gets a 2 count. Cesaro tagged in. Cesaro goes for the neutralizer, but Strowman counters and gets Cesaro up on his shoulders. Strowman comes over and slaps Nakamura in the face. Zayn comes in, pulls Cesaro off Strowman's shoulder, and runs out of the ring again. Strowman starts to run after Zayn, but changes his mind and charges Cesaro in the corner. Cesaro sidesteps him and runs Strowman shoulder first into the corner post. Cesaro then drop kicks Strowman from behind, driving his shoulder back into the post. Referee Charles Robinson pulls Cesaro off of Strowman, allowing Nakamura to deliver a brutal-looking running knee to Strowman on the apron. Nakamura tagged in. Then Zayn tagged in. Nakamura and Cesaro suplex Strowman up for Zayn to hit a hell of a kick. Zayn then pins Strowman to become the new Intercontinental Champion. Cesaro and Nakamura lift Zayn up on the ramp and Strowman in the ring saying, "I'm going to get my hands on you, you son of a bitch." Another WrestleMania ad. Raw replay of the confrontation between Drew McIntyre and Brock Lesnar, then a rundown of some of the matches coming at WrestleMania. Elimination Chamber match to see who will earn a shot against Becky Lynch at WrestleMania. Shayna Bayzsler, Natalya, Liv Morgan, Asuka, Ruby Riott, and Sarah Logan are the participants. Feature on women's Elimination Chamber matches. Asuka out first with Kairi Sane. They are the women's tag team champions. Sarah Logan out next. She headbutts Asuka's pod before getting into her own pod. Liv Morgan out next. She comes over and stares at Sarah Logan before getting into her own pod. Shayna Bayzsler out next. She goes to the other pods to stare at them before getting into her own pod. Ruby Riott out next. Natalya out last. She is the veteran in this match. She looked at each of the pods as Byron Saxton says, although the longest tenured veteran in the match, this is the first time she has competed in the chamber. The bell rings. Riott with a kick to Natalya's stomach. Natalya with a backdrop. Riott holds on and turns it into a sunset flip. She gets a 1 count. Riott with a forearm shot and runs Natalya into a turnbuckle. Then a series of forearms as the announcers talk about Riott trying to go for a quick elimination. Natalya pushes off. Riott with a corner charge. Natalya moves out of the way and Riott hits the turnbuckle chest first. Natalya dumps Riott out on the chamber floor. She then runs Riott into the structure. She asks Riott if she liked that before doing it again. She then rubs Riott's face up against the chain. She then suplexes Riott onto the chamber floor. Natalya then puts Riott into the sharpshooter on the chamber floor. Riott powers out of it, running Natalya into Morgan's pod. Riott stomping on Natalya as Becky Lynch is shown watching the match in the back. Riott climbs up the structure and hits a reverse cannonball onto Natalya. They both roll back in the ring. Riott gets a 2 count. Riott then throws Natalya back out onto the structure floor. Riott then choking Natalya on the chain link with her boot. Riott drops Natalya hard onto the chamber floor. She then runs Natalya back into the chamber itself. She then chokes Natalya back up on the chain link with her boot again. Natalya slips under Riott's leg and gets Riott up on her shoulders. Riott trying to hold onto the chain link and punching Natalya at the same time. Natalya runs Riott into the chain as the timer counts down and Sarah Logan is released. She comes in and hits Natalya with double knees. She then runs Natalya into Morgan's pod. She keeps slamming Natalya into the pod while screaming, "Look at me, Ruby, look at me." Riott starts climbing up the chamber and Logan asks her where she is going. Riott goes up top of Morgan's pod and Logan follows her. Riott kicking Logan while on top of the pod. Logan with a shot to knock Riott back so that she can get up on top of the pod. Back and forth on top of the pod. Logan with a pop-up headbutt on Riott. Riott knocked off of the pod and is just hanging on by a thread. Natalya trying to pull Riott off of the chamber. Logan kicking at Riott's hands. Natalya powerbombs Riott off of the chain link onto the chamber floor. Both wrestlers down. Logan with a crossbody off of the pod to take out both Natalya and Riott. Logan and Riott get back inside the ring. Logan stomping Riott in a corner. She puts Riott on a turnbuckle and hits some forearms to her. She then attempts to superplex Riot, and as she does, Natalya comes and powerbombs Logan. Logan and Riot both down. Countdown starts and Shayna Bayzsler is chosen. She comes out and runs Natalya into a corner post shoulder first. She hits Logan with a Yakuza driver and a rear naked choke, and Logan taps. She hits Riot with a Yakuza driver and a knee strike and a rear naked choke, and Riot taps. Bayzsler comes over to Natalya in the corner. She throws Natalya into the empty pod and beats Natalya down on the floor of the pod. She then lifts Natalya up and sets her in the doorway and slams the pod door into Natalya repeatedly. She then puts Natalya in the clutch, and Natalya taps. Asuka taunting Bayzsler from her pod. Bayzsler said, "What are you going to do about it?" Bayzsler pacing back and forth waiting for the next pod to open. The countdown starts and Liv Morgan is next. Bayzsler meets Morgan at the pod door and slams her into the chain link. Morgan kicks Bayzsler to keep her away. She grabs Morgan's legs and runs her into the cage. She slams her by the legs into the cage several times and then into the pod in a wicked-looking move. The referee comes over to check on Morgan. Morgan rolls into the ring. Bayzsler comes over to Asuka's pod, and Asuka is screaming at her as Becky Lynch is still watching the match in the back. Bayzsler with a forearm and a clothesline to Morgan. Morgan goes over to a turnbuckle and lifts herself up. Bayzsler with a running knee to Morgan. Morgan falls out of the ring by Asuka's pod, and Asuka is screaming at Bayzsler. Bayzsler brings Morgan over to Asuka and screams at Asuka to look at Morgan. Bayzsler gets on the top rope, grabs Morgan, and brings her up and puts the choke on Morgan. Morgan passes out, and the referee waves Bayzsler off. Bayzsler breaks the hold while still staring at Asuka. Asuka continues to scream at Bayzsler, who calmly paces the ring. Lynch shown still watching in the back. The countdown finally starts, and Asuka is released. She gets into the ring, and Bayzsler's on the other side. They face each other, and Asuka goes for a roundhouse kick that Bayzsler ducks. Bayzsler with the kick, and she gets a piece of Asuka. Asuka with a hip attack, and Bayzsler is knocked down. Asuka with a series of knee strikes to Bayzsler, then a back kick to Bayzsler. She tries for a running kick to Bayzsler, but Bayzsler catches her leg. Bayzsler with a single leg takedown and a series of knees to Asuka. Bayzsler with a double underhook to Asuka and lifts her up, but Asuka slips out and goes for a backslide. Bayzsler blocks, so Asuka with a headlock. She grabs Bayzsler by the hair and shakes her. She brings her back for the Asuka lock, but Bayzsler rolls through. Asuka with the go behind and gets the Asuka lock on. Bayzsler rolls under the ropes and goes out onto the platform. She gets to the chain link and pulls herself up, Asuka hanging on for dear life. Bayzsler drives Asuka back into the chain link. She slams Asuka into the chain over and over. Asuka rushes Bayzsler, who catches Asuka's arm and twists it around the top rope and puts her leg into Asuka's armpit and pulls. Asuka kicks Bayzsler, who lets go, and Asuka falls down. Both back in the ring, and Bayzsler going for the clutch. Asuka twists around into a pinning predicament on Bayzsler. Bayzsler trying to keep her other shoulder from going down. Bayzsler gets up and kicks Asuka. She works on Asuka's injured wrist and with a wrist lock, a Yakuza driver to Asuka, and then kicks her. She gets Asuka in the clutch, and Asuka passes out. Bayzsler wins the Elimination Chamber. Bayzsler says even if they wanted to, they couldn't stop her as they replay what happened with her eliminating everyone. She then does her contractually obligated point at the WrestleMania sign, and they sign off from Philadelphia. Final thoughts. This is a fascinating look at a show that happened just before the world changed forever. It's so weird to see all those fans there knowing what we would go through the next 2 years. It's definitely worth a look just for that alone. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at TheJoeyHarris. If you like the show, please leave a review on iTunes or Apple Podcasts. I would really appreciate it. It helps people to find the show. Thank you for joining me this week. This is Joey saying so long from stately Maine Manor.
The Cup of Joe Wrestling Show is a production of Baby Kangaroo Media.